All right, hi everyone. This is part two of solving two-step equations. We just got done in the previous video, we just got done walking through the process. Identifying our variable, isolating that variable to get it all by itself. That's our goal. So what we always do is we do the reverse of PEMDAS. So we always start with the number that's not attached to the variable. So that means we're going to do the inverse operations by getting rid of all the adding and subtracting to get rid of the constant. Then we're going to undo all multiplication and division to get the coefficient by itself. Remember, whatever we do to one side, we do to the other, and we can substitute to check our answers for every single one. So we have a whole bunch of problems that we are going to walk through. So basically what I'm going to do with you today is I am going to walk through the ones on this side, and then your job is to work through the similar example. So there's subtraction, and adding, division and division. So they all look the same, giving you a chance to try it yourself. And then I will reveal the answers at the very, very end of the video. And don't forget, you'll be switching over and meeting with your teacher next. So if you have any questions or concerns, we'll have that time to chat with you to see where what kind of things are confusing you. So here we go. And our first problem is this one right here. So I'm going to there we go. So we can see our steps. So identifying the variable. So our x is our variable. And I draw my line down the middle for my equal sign. It's the first thing I always do in every problem. So now I know I am not touching whatever is with the variable right away. This is what I want to do, not the variable. So I want to get rid of the -4. Again, key, add, subtract. So I want to get rid of subtracting. So what I'm going to do is I am going to, in order to get rid of a -4, we're going to add 4 to both sides because we want it to equal 0. Keeping it balanced, whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. And that would cancel these out. Leave me with 11x on this side. And leaves me with 33 on this side. All right, so then the next step is now use inverse operations to undo the multiplication and division to remove the coefficient and get the variable all by itself. We still want this x alone. So that leads us to our next step. So in order to get rid of multiplication, we are going to divide by 11 on this side and divide by 11 on this side. You will notice that we use the fraction bar for division. We really don't need to use the division symbol. It makes it easy. It kind of flows. You'll kind of see the format of our equation as it builds its way on down. All right, so the last step is to, let's see, the 11s cancel out. 11 divided by 11 equals 1. So I'm left with x on this side. And then my last division problem, 33 divided by 11 is 3. So my answer is 3. All right, so then number 10 is on your own. Let's continue on going to number 11. Number 11 you're going to see is fairly similar, except for having a multiplication and subtraction. We have a multiplication and addition. Process is still the same. Draw a line down the equal sign. Identify your variable. We want to get rid of the part. Start with the part that's not connected to the variable, which is the +2. We're going to undo the equation by adding or subtracting to remove the constant term. So we're going to move the +2 by subtracting 2 from both sides. And that leaves me with this canceling out and leaves me with 5x over here and leaves me with 25 over here. Now, to get x by itself, we are going to undo by multiplying and division to get rid of the coefficient. So we're going to take 5 times x. We're going to divide it by 5 to get rid of it. So we are left with 1 over here. So we're left with our x. And 25 divided by 5 is 5. Now remember, you can always plug this back in. 5 times 5 is 25. 25 plus 2 is 27. 27 does equal 27. We got the right answer. Really easy to check. You can just walk through the process, and if it makes sense, then you know you didn't make any adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing errors throughout the process. All right, so 10 and 12 are on your own. Should be fairly simple. Let's go ahead and look at something that's a little bit more complicated. So we have an addition problem and a fraction bar. division in here. So what I like to tell my students is you always have to, in order to take care of this fraction, we have to take care of the numerator or simplify the denominator first. So when the a plus 7 is together, it's kind of like they're in parentheses. And so in corner parentheses, that's one of the last things we do. So it's going to be one of the last things we do as we work through this process. So we're actually, instead of getting rid of the adding and subtracting first, we are now going to get rid of the division, because in PEMDAS, please, parentheses, excuse my dear, multiplying and dividing comes before we do parentheses, going backwards. So we're going to, instead of getting rid of the dividing by 8, we are going to multiply both sides by 8. Because this side is a fraction, I do 8 over 1. This side is not a fraction, so I can just do 8. All right, so the next thing we do is we cancel. These 8s cancel out. And now it just leaves me with a plus 7 equals 40. And how simple is that? We just got rid of the division part of the problem. It removed the parentheses in the process, and we only have one more step left to do, and we have a solved problem. So we are going to now go back and get rid of adding, subtracting. Subtract 7 from both sides, and our answer is A equals 33. All right, so you'll have a chance in number 14 to try the exact same thing. In these ones, again, remember, the top becomes parentheses, and according to order of operations, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, we work backwards. So we do adding, subtracting first, multiplying, dividing, but look at where parentheses is. It's the last thing we do. Therefore, we can't touch the adding, subtracting until the end. Hopefully that makes sense. Give yourself a chance to practice. Number 15 is another similar problem to what we just saw above. So again, this part right here is in parentheses. So we don't want to touch it. So we're not going to worry about the adding and subtracting for right now. We're going to take care of the dividing by -2. How do we undo dividing? We multiply. Multiply by -2 because it's a fraction. Put it over 1. And over here, it's not a fraction, so we can just leave it as -2. Cancel. -2 over -2 turns to 1. And look again. The parentheses end up disappearing. Don't apply anymore. We just got rid of them all by itself. Equals 15 times -2 is -30. And now you're left with a basic two-step equation that we need to finish up. So we are going to undo to get the constant, get rid of the constant. So we're going to subtract 2 from both sides. And I'm going to run out of space. So I have 4n over here equals -32. And so the last thing to do, well, I'm running out of space. I'm going to write it over here. 4n equals -32. So what I'm going to do now is we are going to divide by 4, divide by 4, and my answer, that turns into a 1, and my answer is -8. All right, so 14 and 16 I have a little bit of a trick to it. Just remember, take care of the division first to get rid of the parentheses, and you'll be fine. Okay, 17 is just a simple division. In fact, this one's probably easier than the one before because it follows the normal process. We want to get the XL by itself, so we are going to add 7 to both sides. There are no parentheses in this problem that we have to worry about. The 7's cancel out, and we're left with x over 2, which is x divided by 2, equals 16. And our last step would be to get rid of the dividing by 2 by multiplying by 2. Multiplying by 2. These 2 cancel out. So I'm left with x. And 16 times 2 is 32. So that one's actually easier than the 2 we just got done finishing. This is just a simple two-step equation with subtracting and division. And we just did the opposite. We did adding and multiplication. And the last problem is a decimal. We do the same thing with a decimal. Feel free to use a calculator if it helps you. I have no problems with calculators this point out. The point is getting the right answers and understanding the process. Not always concerned with writing out the math longhand. All right, so our last problem is getting x by itself. So we get rid of the constant. So a minus 1.5, we're going to add 1.5 to both sides of our equation. And when I add those, these cancel out, and I'm left with 0.6x on this side, and I am left with 3.3 on the other side. Our last step would be to, if this is multiplying by 0.6, we want to now divide by 0.6 on both sides. And like I said, feel free to use a calculator. These cancel out and leave you with x. In your calculator, put 3.3 divided by 0.6, or if you can do it in your head, awesome. And your answer is 5.5. All right, so you have learned how to work with fractions. You've learned how to work with decimals, and you've learned how to work with kind of like parentheses within the division problem and how to solve it. That's probably the most complicated problem that you have. But if you can get the hang of what we showed you today, you'll be in really good shape for your practice. Go ahead and try to complete those practices on the right-hand side over here on your own, following my example. Pause the video at this time, and when you come back on, I will put the answers up. You can check your answers, see how you did, and then when you go talk to your teacher, you can ask questions and get ready to continue further practice before your quiz on Friday. All right, guys, so here is the answers to the rest of the notes. Again, feel free to pause the video, kind of look through my examples. I showed all the work. I showed all my steps in the process. If you take the answer, you could substitute it back in and double check to make sure that the answer really does match. The left side should always equal the right. Whatever you do to the left, you do to the right. Remember, we're that balance, we're that scale. And hopefully you are remembering this from last year and catching on, and you're good to go for your next rotation. Bye, guys.